when you are quiet enough to listen, when the noise of the world fades, and the whispers of your own heart grow louder, you will realize that sometimes life sends you a final message, a call that cannot be ignored. This message is not from outside. It is not from the sky, nor from the clouds. It is from within, the divine part of you that has been waiting for you to wake up. God's last message is not about fear. It is about awakening. It is about reminding you that your time here has meaning, and that silence is no longer your friend. So today, listen carefully, because this message may be your last warning before transformation. There is a moment in every person's life when the silence becomes too heavy to ignore, when the noise of the world fades away and what remains is a deep, unexplainable restlessness within. You can fill your days with distraction, conversation, and movement, but there comes a time when the inner voice grows louder than the outer world. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it simply whispers again and again, "Listen." That whisper is not just intuition, not just emotion. It is the divine call, the message that keeps returning until you choose to answer. It comes in many forms, sometimes as unease, sometimes as longing, sometimes as pain. And yet, most people do not recognize it for what it is. They mistake divine guidance for misfortune. They interpret spiritual redirection as personal failure. But in truth, the universe never stops speaking. It is only us who stop listening. How many times has life shown you the same pattern, the same situation, the same type of lesson? Different faces, different moments, but the same meaning. That is not coincidence. That is repetition for recognition. The lesson will repeat itself until it becomes learned. The divine will knock on your door softly at first, through signs, through feelings, through quiet reminders that something inside you must change. But if you keep ignoring it, the knock becomes louder. The discomfort grows. The restlessness turns into pain. And eventually, if you continue to run, life will stop asking politely. It will shake you, strip you, humble you, until there is nowhere left to hide. Because when the soul is asleep for too long, the universe must wake it up. And sometimes that awakening comes disguised as a breakdown. You see, the divine doesn't speak in words. It speaks in experience. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the failure, the delay, these are not punishments. They are messages written in a language beyond human speech. When you lose something you thought you couldn't live without, it's not because you were forgotten, it's because you were being redirected towards something higher. Every loss, every silence, every closed door carries a sentence that says, "You are not meant to stay here any longer." But the ego resists. The ego clings. It refuses to let go of what feels familiar, even if that familiarity brings pain. The soul wants evolution, but the ego wants comfort. And that is why the call from the divine feels uncomfortable. Because it asks you to leave behind what no longer serves your growth. Many people say they want transformation, but when the process begins, they run. Transformation is not peaceful. It's not pretty. It's a dismantling of everything false, everything that was built on fear, on illusion, on ego. When life begins to remove the things that you once thought defined you, your status, your attachments, your expectations, it is not trying to break you, it is trying to reveal you. You cannot receive a new life while holding on to the old one. You cannot awaken while still sleeping inside the comfort of your own lies. The truth demands your surrender. And that is why the divine keeps sending the same message. Because it knows you have not yet listened deeply enough. There are signs everywhere, but you need eyes that see and a heart that feels. Have you ever noticed that certain numbers follow you? Certain words repeat themselves, certain moments feel like déjà vu. Have you ever felt like someone was speaking directly to your soul, even when no one said a word? That is how God speaks. Not through lightning, not through miracles in the sky, but through the subtle synchronicities that appear when your spirit begins to align. The call you keep ignoring isn't outside of you. It is the voice within that says, "You are more than this. You are meant for something deeper." But every time you silence that voice, you strengthen the illusion that you are separate from your own truth. Life doesn't punish you for ignoring the call, it simply waits. But waiting comes with consequences. The longer you resist growth, the heavier the weight of stagnation becomes. You begin to feel tired, empty, disconnected, not because life has abandoned you, but because you have abandoned your own path. You chase after things that no longer nourish your spirit, relationships that no longer honor your essence, goals that were never yours to begin with. You wake up and feel the quiet ache of meaninglessness, because somewhere along the way, you stopped listening to the truth of your own being. That ache is not depression. It is spiritual hunger. It is your soul reminding you that you were not born to merely exist. You were born to awaken. When the divine calls, it is not always comfortable. Sometimes it removes everything that distracts you so that you have no choice but to look within. It takes away the noise, the people, the comfort, until the only thing left to face is yourself. That is not cruelty. That is compassion, because until you face yourself, you will continue to repeat the same cycles, meet the same pain, and call it fate. But fate changes the moment you decide to answer the call. The moment you say, "Enough, I am ready to see the truth." That is when the message transforms from a whisper to a revelation. You begin to understand why certain things had to fall apart, why certain people had to leave, why certain roads had to end. It was never punishment, it was preparation. You were being molded, refined, purified for the next stage of your journey. The divine never abandons anyone. It simply waits for your awareness to catch up. Every experience in your life is a conversation between you and something greater. The joy, the pain, the stillness, all of it speaks the same language: growth. When God says, "This is my last message to you," it means you have reached the point where ignoring the truth will cost you your peace. It is not a threat, it is an invitation to awaken before life has to shake you awake again. And if you are wise, you will listen. Because every time you delay answering that call, you delay your own evolution. There is a certain peace that arrives when you finally stop running. When you stop resisting what your soul already knows, you begin to see that everything that happened was never random. It was all carefully designed to guide you home, to the place within where you remember who you are. The divine message has always been the same: wake up, remember, return. Return to the truth, return to simplicity, return to presence. But the human mind complicates what is meant to be simple. It seeks signs outside, while the real voice speaks within. You cannot hear the divine if you never allow yourself to be still. Stillness is not inactivity, it is inner attention. And in that stillness, you begin to see the path that was always there, waiting for your awareness to step upon it. When you finally decide to listen, something shifts. You begin to feel guided, even when you don't know the destination. You begin to trust the process, even when you can't see the outcome. That is the moment when life begins to flow instead of fight. Because alignment is not about control. It's about surrendering to the rhythm of something greater than your mind. You realize that what you were chasing was never outside you. It was the feeling of connection, of purpose, of truth. And once you reconnect to that, everything else begins to align naturally. The right people, the right opportunities, the right moments, they all begin to appear as a reflection of your inner harmony. The divine call you kept ignoring was never about doing more, it was about becoming more aware. You do not need to add anything to yourself to awaken. You only need to remove what is false, the masks, the fears, the attachments. The truth of who you are has always been whole, pure, and complete. You are not becoming something new. You are remembering something eternal. And the moment you remember, You begin to see the divine not as something outside of you, but as the very essence of your being. The same light that created the stars breathes through your lungs. The same intelligence that moves the universe beats within your heart. The call you were ignoring was simply the reminder of this connection. Every time you choose awareness over distraction, you answer that call. Every time you choose forgiveness over resentment, stillness over chaos, truth over illusion, you move closer to alignment. And every time you choose growth over comfort, the divine smiles because you are finally beginning to understand. The universe doesn't need you to be perfect, it only needs you to be present. Because presence is where divinity lives. Not in the past, not in the future. Right here, right now, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this moment. There is no such thing as missing your destiny. But there is such a thing as delaying it. Every moment you spend ignoring the inner call, you extend the distance between where you are and where you're meant to be. The path will always be there, waiting, but the longer you resist, the more difficult the return becomes. That is why the message becomes louder, more urgent, more intense. The universe is not trying to scare you, it is trying to save you. From the pain of unconscious living, from the weight of self-created suffering. The pain you feel when ignoring your calling is not punishment. It is the friction between your truth and your denial. The longer you deny your truth, the more painful life becomes. The moment you accept it, peace returns. Look at your life right now. The patterns, the situations, the emotions that keep repeating. What are they trying to tell you? What lesson keeps returning? The answer has been there all along, waiting for your honesty. Maybe the message is about forgiveness. Maybe it's about courage. Maybe it's about letting go. But whatever it is, you already know it deep inside. You just need to stop pretending not to know. The divine is patient, but it will not wait forever. When God says, "This is my last message to you," it means it's time to stop playing small with your potential. It's time to rise, to walk, to act on what your soul already knows. Because wisdom unpracticed becomes a burden. Awareness without action becomes stagnation. You were given this message not just to feel inspired, but to transform. Answering the call doesn't mean your life becomes easy. It means your life becomes meaningful. It means every challenge becomes a teacher, every obstacle becomes a lesson, and every silence becomes a doorway to understanding. You begin to live consciously, with awareness of cause and effect, with trust in divine timing. You stop blaming life for being difficult and start thanking it for being precise. Because everything you experience is a mirror of your inner state. When you heal inside, your outer world begins to reflect that harmony. That is how transformation happens, not by changing the world, but by changing your relationship with it. So, if you are hearing this message today, take it as a sign. Maybe this is your moment to stop ignoring the voice inside you. Maybe this is your reminder that life has been trying to speak to you all along. Through pain, through silence, through moments of wonder. The call has always been there. You don't need to search for it. You only need to listen. The next time you feel lost, remember that you are not disconnected. You are being guided through the mystery. Every ending is a message. Every beginning is a message. Every still moment in between is also a message. And all of them whisper the same truth. Wake up. You are ready now. The call you keep ignoring is not a command. It is an invitation. An invitation to meet yourself, to rediscover your soul, to remember the divine purpose that was written in your spirit long before you were born. You are not here by accident. You are here because the universe needs your light, your awareness, your unique expression of truth. So listen closely. Life is not trying to harm you. It is trying to shape you. And when you finally surrender, when you finally say, yes, everything that once felt heavy begins to dissolve. You stop chasing what was never yours and start receiving what has always been waiting. Peace returns. clarity returns, presence returns, because now, finally, you are listening, and that is all the divine ever wanted. For you to hear, for you to awaken, for you to remember, the whisper was never outside, it was always within. So if you can hear it now, in this very moment, understand, you are already answering the call. There is a moment when you finally realize that no matter how tightly you hold on, some things are not meant to stay. You feel the tension between wanting control and needing peace. The harder you try to direct every outcome, the more life resists you. And in that resistance, there is a sacred teaching, the lesson of surrender. It is not a lesson you learn once. It is a lesson that life will teach you again and again until you understand that real strength is not in holding on, but in letting go. Human beings are taught from the beginning to fight, to push, to strive, to control. You are told that effort is everything, that you must plan your way to happiness, that life will reward you if you push hard enough. And yet, when you reach the moments of exhaustion, when every plan fails, when every door closes, that is when the divine begins to whisper, "Stop fighting. Trust me." But trust is not easy for the mind that fears uncertainty. The ego wants predictability. It wants to feel in charge. It wants guarantees. It doesn't know how to live without knowing. But surrender asks you to do exactly that. To walk forward without a map. To let go of what you think you know. And to trust the path even when you can't see the destination. Surrender begins where control ends. It is the bridge between fear and freedom. The more you try to control life, the more anxious you become. The more you surrender, the more peaceful you feel. Because peace does not come from perfect circumstances, it comes from perfect trust. The divine never asks you to understand everything, only to trust that everything has meaning. And when you begin to live from that awareness, life starts to flow differently. Things fall away, people drift, situations shift, and yet something within you remains calm. That calm is not apathy, it is alignment. You no longer fight against what is leaving, because you understand that whatever is not meant for you cannot stay. The mind asks, "But what if I lose something important?" The soul answers, "Then it was never yours. You cannot use what belongs to your growth. Whatever leaves you is simply returning to its rightful place in the universe. Whatever stays with you is meant to walk with you through the next chapter." When God says, "This is my last message to you," it is often not a warning, it is a moment of clarity. It means you have reached the point where resistance is no longer needed. You have fought long enough. You have tried to control what was never in your control. And now the lesson is simple. Surrender so that grace can enter. Surrender does not mean giving up on your dreams. It means releasing your attachment to how and when they will come. It means doing your best and leaving the rest to a wisdom higher than your own. You still move, you still act, you still work, but you stop trying to force the flow of life. You stop demanding that reality match your desires and instead open your heart to what reality is teaching you. There is beauty in the unexpected, grace in the unknown. When you stop fighting the current, you begin to float. The river of life knows where to take you if you would only trust it. There is a simple truth. The universe does not move according to your plans. It moves according to your alignment. And alignment is not achieved by force. It is achieved by letting go of everything that is false. The more you release, the lighter you become. The lighter you become, the higher you rise. The higher you rise, the clearer you see. You start to notice that the things you once thought were tragedies were actually redirections. The delays you cursed were moments of divine timing. The losses you mourned were necessary removals to make space for something purer. But you could only see that after you surrendered. Because surrender changes your vision. It turns chaos into clarity, pain into purpose, and endings into beginnings. Many people mistake surrender for weakness. They think to let go is to lose. But the truth is the opposite. To surrender requires immense strength. The strength to trust without evidence, the strength to accept what is beyond your control, the strength to remain still when the mind screams to move. Weakness is trying to control everything. Strength is knowing when to release. When you finally let go, you do not fall. You rise. Because what was weighing you down was never meant to be carried. The universe does not reward control, it rewards trust. And when you trust, miracles become possible. Look at nature. The trees do not cling to their leaves in autumn. The river does not resist its flow toward the ocean. The night does not fight the coming of dawn. Everything in creation understands surrender. Only the human mind resists it. But even then, life is patient. It will keep teaching you through experience. It will keep bringing you to the edge, where your plans collapse and your strength seems small, until you realize that surrender is not defeat. It is liberation. Think about the moments in your life when everything seemed to fall apart. You felt fear, confusion, pain. But later, when you look back, you realize that those moments were the turning points. They were the catalysts that pushed you into becoming who you are now. The job you lost led you to your true calling. The person who left made space for someone better. The failure that humiliated you taught you humility, strength, and grace. None of it was random. It was all part of the same divine choreography. You were being guided, but you could not see it then because you were resisting. Once you surrendered, the path became visible. That is how the universe works. The map only appears after you stop trying to draw it yourself. Surrender is a sacred act of faith. It is standing in the middle of uncertainty and saying, even here, I am safe. It is the deep knowing that whatever happens, you are guided. Even in chaos, there is order. Even in endings, there is birth. Even in silence, there is communication. The divine is not outside you. It is the intelligence moving through every breath, every moment, every experience. To surrender is to trust that this intelligence knows what it's doing, that your life is unfolding not by accident, but by precision. And when you trust that, fear begins to fade, because fear cannot survive in the presence of faith. Sometimes, surrender means walking away. Sometimes it means staying still. Sometimes it means forgiving what seems unforgivable. It will always mean listening to your heart, even when your mind disagrees. The mind calculates, but the heart knows. The mind wants comfort, but the heart seeks truth. And the heart will always lead you back to peace if you are brave enough to follow it. But following the heart requires silence, the kind of silence that allows you to hear the divine whisper, the kind of stillness that reveals the next step without effort. You do not need to force what is natural. What is meant for you will recognize you when you are ready. When you are in the middle of a storm, it's easy to panic. The waves seem too high, the wind too strong. You try to fight, to control, to survive by holding on tighter. But sometimes, the only way to survive is to stop struggling. You lie back, trust the water, and float. The storm loses its power not because it disappears, but because you no longer resist it. That is surrender. Trusting that even in chaos, you are carried. That the same force that created the storm will also bring the calm. The greatest peace you will ever feel comes after you surrender, because before surrender, you are constantly in conflict with reality. You want things to be different, people to change, outcomes to follow your script. But life doesn't obey your script. It follows its own divine timing. And the more you resist, the more you suffer. The moment you accept what is, suffering dissolves. Acceptance is not resignation. It is simply saying, this is what is here right now, and I trust that it has a purpose. That single thought transforms your entire inner world. You stop reacting, and you start observing. You stop fearing change, and you start flowing with it. You stop asking, why me? And begin asking, what is this teaching me? And that question opens the door to wisdom. Surrender does not mean you stop caring. It means you care from a place of trust, not fear. You still give your best, but you no longer attach your worth to the outcome. You no longer measure your value by success or failure. You understand that everything is temporary. The victories, the losses, the praise, the blame. You no longer cling to what passes because you have found something eternal inside you. That is the true gift of surrender. Discovering the part of yourself that is untouched by circumstances. The peace that does not depend on the world. When you reach that point, life begins to feel lighter. You stop needing everything to go your way because you trust that it already is, even if you can't see it yet. You become more patient, more grateful, more grounded. You start noticing the small miracles that were always there. The breath that sustains you, the sunlight on your face, the simple beauty of existence. You begin to realize that the divine is not only in the grand events of life, but in the quiet moments, the ordinary experiences, the subtle connections. Everything becomes sacred because you finally see it through the eyes of surrender. The mind fears surrender because it believes surrender is the end. But in truth, surrender is the beginning. It is the point where human effort meets divine guidance. When you let go of what you think should happen, you make room for what is truly meant to happen. You give space for grace to enter, and grace always brings exactly what is needed. Not always what you wanted, but always what your soul requires. That is the intelligence of surrender. It gives you what will grow you, not what will please you. If you look back on your journey, you will realize that the most beautiful chapters began after something ended. The doors you didn't want to close led you to the places you were meant to go. The people who walked away made space for deeper connections. The dreams that broke open created the cracks through which the light entered. You didn't see it then, but you see it now. Everything had meaning. That realization is the essence of surrender, knowing that life has always been happening for you, not to you. And so, when God says, "This is my last message to you," perhaps what he means is this: stop resisting. Stop fighting the flow. Stop trying to be the master of what you were meant to experience as a student. Life is your teacher. Let it teach you. Let it move you. Let it shape you. You do not need to have it all figured out. You only need to trust that you are exactly where you need to be. And when the time comes, the next step will reveal itself effortlessly. The universe never hides the path from the one who walks with trust. When you surrender, you don't lose control. You align with divine control. You stop being the driver and become the passenger of grace. You learn to relax into the rhythm of life. And in that relaxation, you discover the deepest power of all, peace. The peace that cannot be disturbed. The peace that does not depend on outcomes. The peace that is born from knowing that you are held by something greater than your fears. So take a deep breath. Feel the weight you've been carrying. The plans, the worries, the expectations. They are heavy because they were never yours to hold alone. Exhale and release them. Let the divine handle what you cannot. Let life unfold. Trust the timing. And remember, surrender is not the end of your effort. It is the beginning of your alignment. The more you trust, the more miracles unfold. Because when you stop trying to control everything, you allow the divine to work through you. And what flows through you then is not fear, but faith. Not anxiety, but peace. Not resistance, but grace. In the stillness of surrender, you will finally hear the truth that was always waiting within. You were never in control. You were always being guided. There are moments in life when everything you once understood begins to dissolve. The plans you carefully made crumble in front of you, and the certainty you once felt disappears like mist in the morning sun. You look up, and for the first time, there are no answers. Only silence. It is in these moments that your faith is tested. Not in the moments of comfort. Not when everything makes sense, but in the darkness where nothing does. Faith is not built when the road is clear. It is born when you cannot see the road at all. It is easy to speak of trust when life feels gentle. It is harder to live it when everything you love seems to slip through your fingers. But it is in that breaking, in that surrender to the unknown, that faith becomes real. Faith is not belief without question. Faith is belief that endures despite the questions. It is standing before uncertainty and choosing to trust that the invisible has purpose. When the divine tests your faith, it is not because he doubts you. It is because he wants you to discover the strength you did not know you had. The test is not designed to break you, it is designed to reveal you. You cannot know the depth of your roots until the storm arrives. You cannot know the purity of gold until it passes through fire. You cannot know the strength of faith until everything else has been taken away. Every person who has walked a path of growth has faced moments where they whispered, "I can't go on." And yet, somehow they did. That somehow is faith. It is the unseen energy that carries you when your own strength fails. It is the quiet voice that says, "Keep walking, even when your feet are trembling." It is the feeling that even though you don't understand the why, there is a why, and one day it will be revealed. Faith is not about knowing the outcome, it is about trusting the process. It is believing that the same power that started your journey will also complete it. When everything around you falls apart and your prayers seem unanswered, remember this: silence is also an answer. God's silence is not absence, it is observation. In silence, he watches how you respond. Do you cling to fear or do you choose trust? Do you collapse under doubt or do you rise through it? The silence is not meant to punish you, it is meant to strengthen your inner hearing. Because when the noise of external comfort is gone, the only voice left is the one inside you. And that voice, if you listen carefully, will remind you that you were never alone. Faith often begins as an intellectual idea, something you say you believe. But true faith lives in experience. It is easy to say, "I trust," when life feels kind. But when the storm hits, when everything you prayed for seems to vanish, that is when faith asks you, "Do you trust me now?" The test of faith is not whether you can avoid pain, but whether you can stay conscious within it. Whether you can still see purpose in what seems purposeless. Whether you can still whisper gratitude even when tears fall from your eyes. Because gratitude in comfort is appreciation, but gratitude in pain is faith. There is a quiet dignity in those who walk with faith through difficulty. They do not deny their emotions, but they do not drown in them either. They allow themselves to feel fear, but they do not feed it. They allow themselves to feel sadness, but they do not become it. Their strength is not loud, it is patient. They carry light not by shouting it, but by being it. They understand that what the divine takes away is not a loss. It is a lesson. They understand that every detour, every disappointment, is part of a design they cannot yet comprehend. The mind will always ask, "Why is this happening to me?" But faith asks a different question. What is this preparing me for? The shift between those two questions changes everything. When you believe that life is punishing you, you resist it. But when you believe that life is preparing you, you grow from it. That is faith, the ability to see beyond the surface of suffering into the depth of transformation. Every heartbreak can become a doorway to compassion. Every setback can become a foundation for strength. Every unanswered prayer can become a redirection towards something far greater than you imagined. But you only see this when you look through the eyes of faith, not fear. There will come times when your path is filled with silence. No signs, no clarity, no confirmation. You will question everything. You will wonder if your prayers are reaching anywhere at all. In those moments, remember that seeds grow in darkness. The soil must first hide what it holds before it brings it to light. The delay is not denial, it is development. You cannot rush divine timing. The universe is never late, and it is never early. It moves with perfect precision, even when you do not understand it. Your task is not to control the timing. Your task is to remain faithful through it. Faith does not eliminate fear, it transforms it. It doesn't mean you never doubt, it means you never let doubt decide for you. You can still walk through uncertainty while being afraid. Faith is simply the choice to walk anyway. Fear says, "What if you fall?" Faith says, "What if I fly?" Fear asks, "What if I lose?" Faith answers, "What if I learn?" Fear looks for evidence, faith creates it. And when you begin to live from faith, the world responds differently. Life opens doors you didn't even know existed, not because you forced them open, but because your energy aligned with trust instead of resistance. Every spiritual path will lead you to this same realization. The greatest battle is not between you and the world, it is between your faith and your fear. The world outside you is only a reflection of that inner battle. When your faith grows stronger, the outer chaos begins to lose its power, because faith gives you perspective. It reminds you that every storm eventually runs out of rain. It reminds you that pain is temporary, but growth is eternal. It reminds you that no ending is final when the divine writes your story. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and say, "If that didn't happen, I wouldn't have become who I am." The rejection that broke you taught you self-worth. The loss that shattered you taught you strength. The waiting that frustrated you taught you patience. Every test was a hidden blessing, wrapped in discomfort, delivered by grace. Because God does not test you to measure your weakness, He tests you to awaken your wisdom. Each trial is a mirror showing you where you still hold fear. Each delay is a reminder that faith without patience is just hope disguised as control. There is a story written inside your life, one you may not yet understand. You see only a few pages, but the divine holds the entire book. When you read a single line and judge the story by it, you misunderstand its depth. Faith is trusting that the author knows what he's doing, even when you don't like the chapter you're in. Some chapters are dark, but they are not the end. They are there to build the character you will need for the light that follows. When you see life from this perspective, even pain becomes holy. Every person of true strength has walked through a valley of shadows. Every soul that radiates peace has faced storms that would have destroyed others. What made them different was not their circumstances, but their response. They did not curse the darkness. They lit a candle. They did not give up. They grew up. They realized that the divine does not remove the mountains. He strengthens the climber. He doesn't calm every storm. He teaches you how to find stillness within it. And that stillness, that unshakable trust, is the essence of faith. You may feel alone, but you are not. You may feel lost, but the path is still beneath your feet. You may feel that everything is against you, but even opposition can be guidance in disguise. When doors close, sometimes it's because you are not meant to walk through them. When people leave, sometimes it's because their part in your story is complete. When nothing seems to move forward, sometimes it's because life is building foundations beneath the surface. The divine never wastes a moment. Every delay has meaning. Every obstacle has purpose. Every silence has instruction. Faith is choosing to trust that truth before it becomes visible. When your faith is tested, remember that tests don't last forever. Every night eventually gives way to dawn, but the dawn cannot come before the darkness has done its work. The darkness softens you, humbles you, deepens you. It strips away illusion and reveals what is real. You begin to see that you were never in control, that all your strength came not from your plans, but from your connection to the source that moves through all things. That realization breaks the ego and awakens the soul. You understand that even in your weakest moment, you were held by something greater. That every time you thought you were falling apart, you were actually falling into place. The purpose of faith is not to escape suffering, it is to transform it. When you meet pain with faith, pain becomes wisdom. When you meet fear with faith, fear becomes courage. When you meet endings with faith, endings become new beginnings. Nothing is wasted in a life guided by faith. Even your mistakes become messages, your failures become teachers, your scars become symbols of strength. Faith does not remove the cross you carry. It gives you the power to carry it with grace. Sometimes, you will be tempted to give up. You will think, maybe this is the end. But the end is only an illusion. The divine is infinite, and therefore, your story is never truly over. When you feel you've reached your limit, breathe, and remember that the same power that created galaxies also lives within you. That same energy that keeps the stars in their place, that moves the tides, that awakens the sun each morning. It moves through your heart. You are not separate from it. You are part of it. Faith is remembering that connection. And so, when life tests you, do not curse the test. Honor it. Say, I see you. I know you came to teach me. Let every trial become your teacher and every challenge your practice ground. Let your faith be the bridge that carries you from fear to understanding. You do not need to know how it will all work out. You only need to believe that it will, because the divine has never failed the one who truly trusts. One day, when you look back, you will see how perfectly everything aligned. The people who left, the seasons that hurt, the moments that made no sense, all of it was guiding you toward yourself, toward your awakening. Faith will have carried you across the river of fear into the land of peace, and you will understand that what was once your test became your transformation. The waiting became your wisdom. The silence became your teacher. The storm became your awakening. So, if you are walking through darkness right now, keep walking. Do not stop. Do not give up. Do not lose your faith because of what you cannot see. The path is still there, even if your eyes can't find it. The light is still ahead, even if your mind doubts it. You are not lost. You are being led. Every step, even the painful ones, is part of your divine unfolding. The universe does not make mistakes, and neither does your soul. Have faith, not because everything is easy, but because everything is meaningful. Have faith, not because you understand, but because you trust. Have faith, because even when the night feels endless, the morning is already on its way. The test will pass. The lesson will remain. And when it does, you will rise stronger, wiser, and more awake than you have ever been before.